Like there's a whole world you don't know about. Just like how many people know the world of physique competing, bikini. I mean, it's really its own world. There's so many intricacies to like having. I mean, like what the smallest things that people don't know about in bodybuilding or physique competing and bikini is that getting the pump before you get on stage, the tanning, you know, kind of the dehydration of water, which some people do know about. But there's a bunch of little minute details, you know, carb loading, you know, like when you eat. I mean, it goes down to the finest detail that people know nothing about. You know, so it's only specific to that group, in this case bodybuilding, right? Yeah. And then you look at like CrossFit. CrossFit has their own little CrossFit has their own little thing, right? CrossFit has its own little encapsulation of kind of what they think is correct. Yeah. You know, one of the things that gives CrossFit, why CrossFit gets so much shit is because they tend to be jerks, to be totally honest. It's really what it comes down to. It's just that, you know, every group is sort of their own elitist. Yeah. You know, like we're not a CrossFit gym, so we don't necessarily, we get some of that CrossFit elitist feel, but if you went to a CrossFit gym, you'd think they're all assholes. Sort of, because you're going to have one guy that's sort of like the alpha male that kind of wants to like, this is the only way, best way, and you know, we all know that's not the case. But I think CrossFit has good merits, just like bodybuilding, powerlifting, Olympic lifting. They all have great merits, you know. And a lot of times the people that want to argue semantics are basically people like us, people who are nerds about fitness, you know. And they're like, oh, this is it. It really doesn't even matter. The client doesn't really care about their friend time, you know what I mean? So like deadlifting wrong is like driving on the highway on second gear. You might get to point A to point B, but you'll do it at a cost that is often not worth the amount of damage to the engine. So why would you drive on the highway on second gear? Doesn't make no fucking sense. Maybe third gear, right? You can pull over. You gotta pull. You gotta beat somebody. You're in the Corvette. No, you can pull. You'll pull in a third gear so you can maybe pass somebody, right? Yeah. Right. So it has its purpose. But I mean, like Corvette. But then to ride third gear all the way from, you know, it's probably not a good idea, but you could do it. Yeah. Until the car can't. No, until the car can't anymore. Yeah. Until the car can't anymore. I mean, a Corvette can get up to like 130. I mean, how long can you go on 9,000 RPMs before the car fucking breaks? 10 seconds. Yeah, so that's the same thing with the body. Exactly, but the body is actually a lot more smarter than that because it will figure. You can. Some people can get away with a lot. Engine's not going to correct yourself. Yeah, engine. It can keep going. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So going over kind of what my notes here is the most important thing that you need to prioritize is the spine. It's quite common that the clients have very tight hamstrings that prevent them to reach the bar ideal position. So it's important that when they reach down for the bar, that they keep their back in neutral. That's probably the most important thing. Because I'm pretty stiff this morning, it's kind of hard for me to get down to the bottom. So what you kind of want to focus on doing when you teach a client is that's always the number one rule, is that the spine, you got to get to the bar with this. Because a lot of time, this is what will happen with people, is they'll get down like this. Like it's like, oh, I want you to deadlift the bar, and then this is what they'll do. They'll go down, their back will round because they can't reach the bar, they bend their knees, and then they reposition, and then try to do it right? Well, think about that for a second. I mean, you're going down into a bad position, and then you're trying to load the spot, then you're trying to get into a correct position, and then pull. Why not just go down in the correct position from the start, and then recorrect? Now, one is more optimal than the other because the spine stays protected the entire time. That's really the most important thing. I mean, bar path is important, right? Bar path is really important because that makes the bar path more efficient, right? You get to lift more weight. So all we're trying to do is just prioritize the most important thing. And the most important thing is the spine. So all things being equal, the spine is the most important thing in the movement. So keep the spine neutral, then you can do whatever the hell you want. You can do everything. You can think suboptimal technique. It doesn't even matter. What matters most is that you have neutral spine. That's the most important thing. So outside of that, you can almost teach anyone anything, even though the bar gets away from them when they deadlift, which I'll talk about. Okay, so competition deadlift for powerlifting and CrossFit. Training specificity is paramount. Why are you teaching the deadlift? What is your purpose? In powerlifting, you're trying to maximize all avenues of leverage to get the most amount of weight up. The judge will say platform ready, and then you attempt to lift. You use a technique that gives you the most amount of leverage. Might not necessarily be the healthiest way to teach a client the maximum lift, but it's the most effective way to get the most out of the to get the most out of for the competition, right? In CrossFit, there are powerlifting like ladders where for hitching. Like in powerlifting, hitching is not allowed. So hitching is simply when you lift the bar from the ground, and then the bar gets right to here, and then you get sort of stuck because the weight's too heavy. So then what you do is you use your legs to support the weight to hitch. That's called hitching in CrossFit. That's typically on the internet. It's definitely a naysay. You don't want to do that, but in general, that's a fault for powerlifting. So as you're using your legs to help lift the weight up, in CrossFit you can do that. It's technically bad technique, but it's allowed. So that's competition. As you know, I'm not a CrossFit expert, but in multiple reps, especially high reps, there are two things I think that are important, or two things you can use to your advantage when it comes to doing deadlifts for lots of repetitions, like in a competition. Bouncing the weight off the ground, touch and go, and rounding the upper back. Rounding the upper back shortens the distance, right? And touch and go, you get to bounce the weight off the ground. It makes the exercise easier. So instead of, stop picking the weight like a dead weight, you can actually just get a little bit of you can round the upper back a little bit like this, and you get a little bit more speed, you get more reps, and it's just a little bit more efficient. Is it healthy? Probably isn't, But that's not the discussion we're having when it comes to competition style lifting. It's very specific to the sport. I don't even know how to do that well. But if I were to do something like that, you want to get the most out of the technique. Like every exercise has a way to cheat, if you want to say. Oh, cheating is just basically, you can argue that it's good technique or better technique, but that's all you're trying to do. You're trying to get the most out of the lift, whether it be more reps for a score or more weight for a score, right?
So ideally, it just depends on what your ultimate goal is, whether you're a CrossFitter, doing it for Olympic lifting, or doing it for aesthetics purposes.
It's all about the purpose.
Yeah.
The goal, goal is a good point, but then it gets convoluted. It's misunderstood. Oh, what's your goal? Well, touch and go deadlifts can be used for building strength. It all depends on like what the purpose is of the day. Let's go see here. Okay, so just understand that people touch and go, people bounce the weight, people hitch, people round the upper back. All that is mostly for sports. Typically not for about 90% of the clients that we train. Probably 95% of the clients we train, right? Deadlifting for your clients. Conventional deadlift and the RDL are the two movements that are most useful for our client. Those are the ones that you probably will, of these 8 lifts that I have on the front page here, those are probably the 2 most important lifts, or the most kind of functional, that makes the most sense for clients.
What's RDL?
A Romanian deadlift. The approach of what a deadlift should be viewed as this is the view you should have a deadlift, picking something up off the ground with a flat back. How many people should be able to do that? It's a very functional movement. It's not picking, so like someone who's afraid to deadlift, can someone tie their shoes? I mean, that's as close as you can get to a deadlift without lifting weights. Someone that's afraid that has a lower back problem, you should be able to get them to touch their toes, or at least reach for their toes. How about that, right? Even if I'm not lifting weights, I have a client that's a back problem, or his back is very tight that day, but we still need to work on some of those movements. Reaching down and trying to reach for your toes without your lower back, without compromising your lower back position, is totally reasonable, right? It should be, because otherwise, the one day you pick something up off the ground, you're Snap City, right? Which sort of like, you're trying to get stronger, trying to make yourself injury-proof, right? I just touch on those 2 things because we have a lot of people that are in the competition, the staff, and then when you see someone doing something wrong or less optimal, you sort of have a context or understanding for why someone is doing something, because technically everyone's doing something wrong in the gym, so it's just really a matter of context, so that's what I meant. So glute aesthetics from deadlifting. Who doesn't want a nice butt, right? Based on the way the glute maximus muscle fibers run, deadlifts are the best way to build that shelf of the glutes. Others might want to disagree, but in my opinion, this is all in the deadlifts. Sure, squats work, so why not do both, right? So. Yeah.
Well, I think for me, that's what I wanted to get most out of this, was just like correcting that form to get the most for aesthetics purposes. We're trying to build the glutes.
Right.
And just like what's proper as far as having it here, making sure the
number 1 thing is what? Neutral spine. That's the most matter. Now, how do you build muscle? What's the most effective way to build muscle? No, it's not. What is it's something else. Mechanical load. Mechanical load, not mechanical load. Like if I keep touching my bicep, is it going to grow?
No, but if you keep tension on your bicep, the heavier weight.
Exactly. But mechanical load is one of the best ways. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to bias towards heavier, but you know, as mechanical load is because your butt's not going to grow week to week. It's very incremental. Your arms are not going to grow week to week, but you can measure how much weight you can lift. Okay, you know, 5 sets of 5 with 100 pounds. Next week, 5 sets of 5 with 110 pounds. 5 sets of 5 with 120 pounds. There is a definitive growth pattern or strength pattern, right? So mechanical load meaning the actual physical amount of tension on the tissue. So that's one. Second is a metabolic damage, metabolic fatigue. So that's like reps, getting that burn, right? That's what most clients want. Under most circumstances, that's going to be what is kind of effective for clients as far as a skill, but it's not optimal for actually building. It's just optimal because the person's skill cannot tolerate that heavy of a load, all right? Some clients will progress better with one movement, basically either the squat or the deadlift. Progression is important because muscle size is related to how much you can lift. For the purpose of this conversation, this usually means 3 rep max or 5 rep max. What is the most weight you can lift? 5 repetitions. What's the most weight you can do with 3 repetitions? 1 repetitions is nice, is great, but it's typically very unsafe for most clients. It's too much of a risk. It's a risk that the client has to choose to take. It's very nerve-wracking. You know, so it's sort of like it's a decision, like, because then you're lifting the bar, that's actually my biggest thrill of the potential of hurting myself is, and then over-conquering is why I love powerlifting. That's what makes it so fun for me. You know, so that's kind of like the rush I get out of it. You know, that I have a weight, there's a chance I'm going to fail, you know, or a chance, there's a potentially that I can injure myself, you know, but then that's part of the fun, you know, or for me at least.
Adrenaline rush.
Yeah, exactly. Has nothing to do with health. Totally based on ego.
When it comes to deadlifting, we would recommend 5 sets of 5.
I won't say that. Yeah, it's every individual. It's individual.
Talking about when it comes to for the aesthetics as far as like growing, like to be on a program that we do, but with your clients, it's going to be a little bit different.
Because you got to build the form, the correct
Yeah.
and then whatnot, then stacking.
Yeah, you got to build the technique first before you build a lot of weight. You know. So yes, no.
As far as building the muscle, like you're saying, the shell, you would do less reps.
Yes, you do both. You do both. There's no reason why you can't do both.
Yeah.
I'd like to work up the heavy and then do a bunch of reps afterwards.
Yeah.
Because for a lot of people, working up heavy doesn't take too long because most people aren't that strong to lift that heavy, you know, and then you can do a bunch of reps all the time. You know, but then of course, there's always that risk. So you always have to assess what is appropriate for the client, right? Progression is important because muscle size. Okay, so that's basically what I wrote in here. So let's go over some technique and talk about some things. I said Romanian deadlift or RDL simply because they have control from the top. So sometimes, you know, if you use those racks, right, and they unrack it, they can stay in neutral. Sometimes it's hard to teach someone to reach for the ground, you know, to grab the weight with the neutral spine. So if you have them unrack it from the racks and then walk back, you can kind of teach this hip hinge. I have a client that can't hip hinge. It's ridiculously difficult to teach them, right? So yeah, some people you run into they're very rigid. But what I like to do this time right now is I would like to see each of you do some repetitions, so that way I can kind of review your technique or just take a look at your form, and then we can all kind of share. Can you grab some plates?
Yeah.
Go ahead and just pick up the weight and do a few repetitions like you would normally do a deadlift. Just center conventional deadlift. Do like 2 or 3. Go ahead, you go. So overall, it's pretty good. Like he kept his back straight for the most part. The only thing that was is that he started rounded, which we kind of want to prevent, right? So you went down into position to grab the weight, and then you went into position. It's always better if you're here, because what happens if you're here, you can stay rigid.
Yeah.
Longer. You know, that's the reason why if you see me max lift, I'm always here first, then I get down, because then I take a big breath of air.
See, I always set at the bottom.
You can set at the bottom, but you don't want to set with a rounded back, because then you're basically you're essentially rounding, correcting, tightening, and then coming up. Yeah. So it's better to just stay where you're at. That way you're basically a rigid plank. So what I'd like you to see you do this time is see if you can reach down for the bar, but not let don't compromise your lower back. So let's go watch Blake lift and watch his lower back, watch his hips, and just do 2 or 3 reps again. Just regular, standard, conventional deadlift. So you might need to get your knees to go, bend your knees more forward, so that way you can keep your back straight more. There you go, see? So you might have to kind of squat to the bar. There you go. And you can kind of see how he kind of loads his hamstrings a little bit better. The only problem is his knee, so he doesn't like to flex his knee too much, right? That's sort of like, it's a workaround. So that, considering that there are limitations with people. So you're not, I'm just saying like always just going with the ideal, and then some people just can't do the ideal for, you know, irritation and stuff. Because basically, I mean, for you, with your hamstrings being very tight, because, I mean, there's not going to be a whole lot of people that can do this.
Right.
I know I can't. I have to go to, and I can barely do that, right? So I have to round.
How did it feel when you did it that way versus the other way that you're used to?
No, you just have this mechanism where you're like, okay, I don't want to go that way.
Yeah, no, I just felt, well, it's lightweight for me, so.
It doesn't hurt, but it's
honestly harder for me. I think I straighten my back better at a heavier weight, obviously, because.
No, we're actually talking about reaching for the bar. We're not even talking about.
When I'm reaching for the bar, I feel like I pay more.
Oh, you do. Oh,
you know what I mean?
I see.
Like I'll set up more.
When you have heavy, you focus on it
more
than
than.
you're just like,
But not like blah, but when it's like 95 pounds, you know, I probably don't take into consideration as much. Like, okay, I feel like my back's pretty neutral, but then when I go very heavy, I'm gonna make sure that
you have to.
Yeah, I have to.
Otherwise, you're gonna get hurt.
All right, let's see you do it, Sabrina. Let's go watch Sabrina do about 5 repetitions. So as she does the exercise, you can actually see how much more movement you're getting out of her spine. That's definitely what you don't want. All right, there's.
Your hands this way versus this way.
That's my preference because I don't have good grip training.
Oh, the grip. Oh, this actually gives you more. Doing a mixed grip will prevent bar roll. So if you have a really heavy weight and you pick up the bar, it will have a tendency to roll out of your fingers, especially if it's really heavy. Doing this makes it so the bar shouldn't roll.
I just do that every time for my grip.
You know, for a good deloading workout, doing. I heard from Dave Tate. He said, not Dave Tate. He said, for a Windler, he said, doing deadlift, max deadlifts with this, just basically automatically determines how much you can lift for the day. That way you don't overdo it. You know, if you're having like a light deadlift day. All right, so what I want you to try to do is I want you to brace your abs harder and see if we can do 3 repetitions without any spinal movement. Now, it's a good eye. Just look at her spine. Look at her lower back related to her hips and see what happens to her spine and see if she can tighten her stomach and not allow the spine to move at all. Time. Stop. So there's already a fault. So she already faulted. Just move. Basically, there should be no movement at all, right? So it's going to matter more and more as the weight gets heavier. You know, so go ahead. So you might want to squat down a little bit more just to give you a little bit more forgiveness, you know, and then begin the movement. Tighten your stomach, brace your abs. So 1, good. 2. It's not too bad, but there's still too much extension. So you can stop. So this is the reason why people have lower back issues, because Sabrina is strong. She can tolerate that. At heavier loads, that back is going to get fried.
She's taking the weight, she's putting it on her lower back instead of putting it straight on her.
It's not so much that your back is going to be loaded. It's just that the spine is moving while it is loaded. You know, so I'll exaggerate the movement so you can see what I'm talking about. So there's sort of a rigid way. I hate these freaking shorts. Okay, there's a rigid way. And then there's sort of the way where you move your spine. I mean, Sabrina tried to stay very rigid, but then what would happen is that she would start here. Her spine would flex a little bit, right? And then as she would go up, no, it's fine. This is fine. This is okay. But then what would happen is she would extend into.
Let me ask. Now, is it because she didn't make any shin contact? She brought the weight basically straight up and then brought her hips to it?
Yeah.
Is that because of the spine?
With this weight, you should be able to control your stomach hard enough to where that would. I mean, if you keep.
Do you get what I'm saying?
No, I do. So what Blake, what you're saying is that if she kept the bar closer.
That is that.
No, your stomach's not tight enough.